The invasion begins. The stars beyond the outer veil had always belonged to silence. For 3 centuries, the Galactic Council had maintained one unspoken rule: never cross into human territory. Not because humanity possessed superior weapons or vast armadas, but because every species that tested those borders came back changed, or didn't come back at all. Fleet Commander Zethar of the Krill Dominion stood aboard the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Talon, watching 200 warships materialize from jump space. The armada stretched across the void like a steel constellation, each vessel bristling with plasma cannons and void breakers capable of cracking moons. His second-in-command, Officer Ralthos, approached with the reverence reserved for moments of history. "Commander, the fleet report's ready. Invasion corridors are locked. We await your order." Zethar's 4 eyes gleamed with confidence. The Krill had conquered 18 systems in the past decade. Their exoskeletons were harder than titanium, their reflexes faster than most predators, their technology refined over millennia. And yet, the Council had warned them. Humans are different. Different how? Zethar had asked the Council elders. The ancient Vorlon ambassador had simply stared at him with those infinite black eyes and whispered, "They don't know when to die." Superstition. Fear born from outdated encounters. Zethar dismissed it then, just as he dismissed it now. "Proceed with the invasion," he commanded. "Target the colony world of New Haven first. Minimize resistance, secure resources, and establish a foothold. This will be over in days." The fleet surged forward, tearing through space toward the edge of human territory. New Haven was a farming colony. Population, 43,000. No military installations, no orbital defense platforms. Intelligence reports confirmed it. A soft target, ripe for conquest. The perfect entry point. As the Krill warships descended through the atmosphere, their scanners detected scattered human settlements below. Small towns, agricultural zones, a single spaceport with civilian shuttles. No resistance detected, Ralthos reported. Planetary defenses are non-existent. This will be a textbook occupation. Zethar nodded. Deploy ground forces. Secure the spaceport and major population centers. I want this world claimed before nightfall. 12 troop carriers broke formation, descending through thick clouds toward the planet's surface. Inside each vessel, Krill soldiers prepared for what they assumed would be a routine pacification. They had done this 100 times before. Land, intimidate, occupy, move on. But as the first carrier touched down on the outskirts of a farming town called Red River, something felt wrong. The streets were empty, too empty. No panicked civilians fleeing. No surrendering officials waving white flags. Just silence. The cargo bay doors hissed open, and 200 Krill soldiers marched out in perfect formation, their chitinous armor gleaming under the pale sun. Squad leader Thrak raised his scanner, searching for heat signatures. "Commander, I'm reading. Nothing. No life signs in the immediate area." Before Zethar could respond from orbit, the first explosion tore through the carrier's engine block. The shockwave sent soldiers sprawling, and flames erupted into the sky. Thrak spun around trying to identify the source. And then they came. From barns, from windows, from beneath hay bales and behind irrigation equipment. Humans. Not soldiers in gleaming armor, but farmers in overalls, teachers with hunting rifles, teenagers clutching homemade explosives. Their faces were grim, their movements desperate but coordinated. They didn't charge with war cries. They didn't hesitate. They simply opened fire. The Krill soldiers, trained and disciplined, returned fire with plasma rifles. The first wave of humans fell, 10, 20, 30, but more kept coming. An elderly woman threw a Molotov cocktail that engulfed 3 soldiers in flames. A young man detonated a jury-rigged mine beneath an advancing squad. A child, fired a makeshift crossbow from a second-story window before being cut down. Thrak screamed into his comm. "We need reinforcements. These aren't civilians, they're—" He never finished. A human mechanic tackled him from behind, driving a sharpened pipe through the gap in his armor. As Thrak collapsed, the last thing he saw was the mechanic's face. not filled with rage or hatred but with cold, unyielding determination. Aboard the Eternal Talon, Zethar watched the carnage unfold through battlefield feeds. 11 carriers, 11 battles, 11 scenes of impossible resistance. "This doesn't make sense," Ralthos muttered, his mandibles clicking nervously. "They have no military, no training. They should be surrendering, but they weren't." In every settlement, the pattern repeated. Humans, farmers, doctors, shopkeepers, children, fought with weapons that should have been laughably inadequate. And when their weapons failed, they used tools. And when their tools broke, they used their hands. One feed showed a human woman bleeding from a dozen wounds, dragging herself toward a Krill soldier. She clutched a kitchen knife. The soldier raised his rifle to finish her, but she lunged, first driving the blade into his neck joint before collapsing beside him. Another feed showed a group of teenagers using farming drones rigged with explosives to kamikaze into Krill positions. A third showed an old man standing alone on a rooftop, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "This is our home. You will not take it. We will not stop." Seconds later, orbital fire vaporized the building. Zethar's claws gripped the armrest of his command chair. "Pull back ground forces. Regroup at the spaceport. Commander, we're losing more soldiers to retreats than advances. They're hunting us through the streets." I said pull back. By nightfall, the Krill had secured only the spaceport and a 3-block radius around it. The rest of New Haven remained in human hands. The cost? 400 Krill soldiers dead, 12 carriers destroyed or damaged, and an entire invasion force now entrenched in a defensive position on a world they were supposed to conquer in hours. Zethar stared at the tactical display, watching red markers, human positions, pulse across the map. There were thousands of them, thousands of civilians who refused to run, who refused to hide, who refused to stop. For the first time in his career, Fleet Commander Zethar felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. Fear. The cost of advancement. 3. Days had passed since the landing on New Haven, and Fleet Commander Zethar had learned a terrible truth. Time favored the humans. Every hour the Krill remained planetside, their position weakened. Supply lines were harassed by human guerrillas who struck from sewers, rooftops, and abandoned buildings. Sensor equipment malfunctioned, sabotaged by civilians who somehow infiltrated secured zones. 2 ammunition depots had been destroyed by children carrying backpacks full of fertilizer explosives. Children, Zethar reviewed the casualty reports again, his 4 eyes scanning the data with growing disbelief. 643 Krill soldiers dead. Another 200 wounded. Medical supplies running critically low. And the humans? Intelligence estimated they'd lost nearly 3,000 civilians. 3,000. And yet they kept fighting. "Commander, we've intercepted human communications," Ralthos reported, his voice hollow. "You need to hear this." The bridge speakers crackled to life. A human voice, female, young, broadcasting on an open channel. "This is Sarah Chen, New Haven Resistance, broadcasting to all survivors. The Krill hold the spaceport, but they're boxed in. We've mined the northern access road. Western approach is under sniper coverage. They're running low on supplies. I can see it in their movements. They're scared." A pause, then quieter. "My brother died yesterday. My father the day before. But we're still here, and we'll be here tomorrow, because this is our home and they will not take it." The transmission ended. Zethar's mandibles tightened. "How many resistance cells have we identified?" 47 confirmed, Commander, but the humans don't operate in traditional command structures. Every neighborhood seems to act independently. Kill one leader, 3 more emerge. It's impossible to predict. Impossible. That word was appearing more frequently in reports. The Krill military machine, perfected over centuries, was designed to fight other militaries. Organized forces with predictable tactics, clear command hierarchies, strategic objectives. But humans didn't fight like that. They fought like they had nothing to lose because they didn't. Zethar made a decision. If they couldn't hold ground, they would scorch it. Prepare orbital bombardment. Target grid sectors 7 through 23. Civilian population centers. Ralthos hesitated. Commander, that's genocide. The Galactic Council. The Council warned us about humans. They didn't warn us how to defeat them. Zethar's voice was cold. We end this now. Complete bombardment. Leave nothing standing. The weapons officer's claws hovered over the firing controls. Plasma batteries charging, targets locked. Ready on your command, sir. Zethar watched the planetary display. Thousands of life signs flickered across the map. Humans, going about their desperate resistance, unaware that death was about to rain from the sky. He raised his claw. Commander, jump signatures detected. Multiple contacts entering the system. The tactical display exploded with new markers. 15, no. 20, no. 30 human warships materialized from faster-than-light travel, emerging from jump space in perfect formation. They weren't colony defense ships. These were military vessels bristling with railguns and missile arrays. A transmission cut through every channel. Krill Fleet? This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force. Second Fleet. You have invaded sovereign human territory and engaged in hostile action against civilian populations. You have one chance to withdraw. Refuse, and we will send you home in pieces. Zethar's confidence flickered. 30 ships against his 200. The numbers still favored the Krill. But something in the Admiral's voice, that same cold certainty he'd heard in the civilian broadcasts, made his scales itch. Open a channel, he ordered. This is Fleet Commander Zethar of the Krill Dominion. We outnumber you nearly 7-1. Withdraw or we will add your fleet to our conquests. Silence. Then, you still don't understand, do you? We didn't come here to win a fair fight. We came here to make you bleed. The human fleet surged forward. The Battle of New Haven began with a human tactic the Krill had never encountered. The suicide run. 3 human destroyers, smaller and faster than their Krill counterparts, accelerated at maximum burn directly toward the center of the Krill formation. Every weapon on the destroyers fired. Railgun slugs, nuclear-tipped missiles, even their point defense systems turned outward in a desperate broadside. Destroy those ships, Zethar commanded. Plasma batteries opened fire, shredding the first destroyer into glowing debris. The second took critical damage but kept coming, its hull breached and venting atmosphere. The third rammed. It slammed into a Krill cruiser at relativistic speed, and the resulting explosion vaporized both ships instantly. The shockwave sent 3 nearby Krill vessels spinning out of formation. Their shields overloaded, their systems scrambled, and in that moment of chaos, the rest of the human fleet struck. They didn't fight like the Krill, maintaining formation, trading volleys at optimal range, preserving assets. They fought like cornered animals, throwing everything they had into every attack. Missiles launched from impossible angles. Railgun slugs punched through shields that should have held. Human fighters, tiny, fragile craft that should have been cannon fodder, swarmed Krill battleships like insects, targeting sensor arrays and engine blocks with suicidal precision. Zethar watched his fleet's casualty count climb. 2 ships destroyed, 4 crippled, 7 damaged. Commander, their tactics are insane. They're sacrificing ships to create openings. I can see that, Zethar roared. All ships, scatter formation. Focus fire on their capital ships. But the humans adapted faster than the Krill could respond. When the Krill scattered, the humans reformed into tight strike groups, concentrating firepower on isolated targets. When the Krill tried to regroup, the humans harried them with long-range bombardment. And on New Haven's surface, the human resistance watched the battle through jury-rigged telescopes and hijacked sensors. They cheered. They broadcast encouragement to the fleet. And when a Krill supply transport tried to retreat planetside, they shot it down with stolen anti-air batteries. 6 hours into the battle, Admiral Vasquez transmitted again. Commander Zethar, we've destroyed 18 of your ships. You've destroyed 6 of ours. Want to know the difference? We're willing to lose all 30. Are you willing to lose all 200? Zethar stared at the tactical display. His fleet was winning on paper. Better kill ratios, more ships remaining, superior firepower. But morale was collapsing. His captains were requesting permission to withdraw. His soldiers on New Haven were abandoning positions to return to orbit. And the humans? They were singing. He could hear it on the intercepted communications. Humans singing old battle hymns as they charged Krill positions, as their ships burned, as their people died. "Commander, we must withdraw," Ralthos said quietly. "This isn't a battle we can win." "Not like this, we outnumber them, and they don't care." Ralthos' voice cracked. "Don't you see? We're trying to win. They're trying to make us bleed. Every ship we lose makes the invasion harder to justify. Every soldier who dies on that planet is one less warrior for the next target. They're not fighting to win this battle. They're fighting to make sure we never invade again." Zethar's claws trembled. The galaxy had warned him. The Council had warned him, and he'd ignored them all. "Order the fleet to retreat," he whispered. "Jump coordinates back to Krill space. Immediate withdrawal." As his ships began their emergency jump procedures, Zethar took one last look at New Haven. The human colony, scarred, burning, its population decimated, still stood. And on the surface he could see the resistance fighters emerging from cover, raising makeshift flags over the ruins of what had been their homes. They'd lost thousands. Their cities were rubble. But they'd won. The Krill fleet vanished into jump space, leaving behind wreckage and a lesson written in blood. Humans don't fight wars. They fight extinction events, and they always assume they're the ones going extinct. The hunter becomes the hunted. The Krill Dominion had never known defeat. For 800 years they had expanded across the stars, conquering worlds with methodical precision. Their empire stretched across 47 systems, each one a testament to their superiority, until New Haven. Fleet Commander Zethar stood before the War Council, his four eyes downcast, his exoskeleton still scarred from battle damage. The chamber was vast and ancient, carved from obsidian stone lit by bioluminescent fungi that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. 7 high commanders sat in judgment, their forms shadowed and terrible. "You lost 32 ships." High Commander Vrath's voice echoed through the chamber. "Against a human fleet 1/6 your size. They fought without regard for their own survival." Zethar replied, his voice steady despite the shame burning in his chest. "They used tactics we couldn't predict." "Tactics?" Another high commander leaned forward. "Or did you simply underestimate them? Did you ignore the warnings we received from every species that has ever encountered humanity?" Zethar had no answer. The truth was worse than failure. He had been terrified, not of human weapons or ships, but of the look in their eyes, that absolute refusal to surrender, even when death was certain, even when it was preferable. "The invasion is suspended," Vrath declared. "We will regroup, analyze their tactics, and—" The chamber doors exploded inward, not from explosives, from a kinetic strike that had punched through 3 levels of the Council fortress. Alarms shrieked as atmosphere vented into space and emergency shields snapped into place. Through the breach, Zethar could see the void beyond, and the silhouette of a human warship. Its hull scarred and burning, its weapons hot. A transmission crackled through every speaker in the chamber. "Krill War Council. This is Captain James Rivera of the UEDF Retribution. You came to our home. Now we're coming to yours." The human ship fired again, not at the fortress but at the orbital defense platform surrounding it. Explosions bloomed across the defensive perimeter like flowers of fire. "Impossible," Vrath roared. "This is the heart of our empire. How did they—" But Zethar understood. The humans had tracked them, followed them through jump space, and now they were doing what the Krill had done to New Haven. They were bringing the war home. Captain James Rivera had volunteered for this mission knowing he wouldn't return. His crew of 43, all volunteers, all veterans of New Haven, had one objective: deliver a message the Krill couldn't ignore. His ship, Retribution, was a destroyer-class vessel, fast and deadly, but hopelessly outmatched against the defenses of the Krell homeworld. "Captain, we've got 73 enemy contacts inbound," his tactical officer reported. "Defense platforms are firing. We've got maybe 3 minutes before they overwhelm our shields. Then we make those 3 minutes count," Rivera said calmly. He opened the general broadcast. "Krill Dominion, you thought you could invade our worlds without consequence. You thought we'd surrender because you had bigger ships, more soldiers. You were wrong." He watched the enemy fleet closing in. Beautiful, really, like a swarm of angry hornets, all chitinous armor and plasma fire. Humans don't forgive invasions. We don't forget. "And we never stop coming," Rivera smiled. "Fire everything." Retribution unleashed its entire arsenal in 90 seconds. Nuclear missiles, railgun slugs, plasma torpedoes, everything they had, thrown at the orbital infrastructure surrounding the Krill homeworld. Defense platforms erupted into debris. A shipyard complex took a direct hit, spilling half-constructed vessels into the void. When the magazines were empty, Rivera gave his final order. All hands, it's been an honor. Set collision course for their largest orbital station. Maximum burn. The crew didn't hesitate. They didn't cry or pray. They simply did their jobs because that's what humans did when the universe demanded it. Retribution accelerated into the heart of the Krill defense network, its hull glowing red from friction and weapons fire. The Krill threw everything they had at the human ship, plasma batteries, void breakers, even other ships trying to intercept. But Rivera had calculated the angle perfectly. Retribution struck the primary command station at 0.3% light speed. The explosion was visible from the surface of the Krill homeworld, a new star burning briefly in their sky. The command station, and the 300 Krill officers inside, ceased to exist. In the wreckage, a final transmission broadcast on every frequency. This was one ship. Imagine what 100 will do. Imagine what 1,000 will do. Stay out of human space or we'll turn your entire empire into a graveyard. The attack on the Krill homeworld changed everything. Within days, 11 species petitioned the Galactic Council for protection from human retaliation. The Vorlon ambassador, ancient and knowing, addressed the assembly with words that would echo across the galaxy. We warned you. We told you that humans are different. They don't conquer. They survive. They don't surrender. They adapt. And when you threaten their homes, they don't defend. They hunt. Fleet Commander Zethar, stripped of his rank but allowed to address the council, spoke with a voice that had lost all its former pride. We thought they were weak because they didn't have our numbers. We thought they were foolish because they didn't have our technology. But we didn't understand their greatest weapon, their absolute refusal to accept defeat. A Krill soldier fights for glory. A human fights because the alternative is extinction. And when you make them believe they're facing extinction, they become something we can never be. What's that? Someone asked. Unstoppable. The Krill Dominion signed a non-aggression treaty with humanity the following month. They returned every piece of salvage from New Haven, paid reparations to the survivors, and formally recognized human territorial sovereignty. Other species watched and learned. 50 years later, humanity had become the galaxy's unofficial peacekeepers, not through conquest, but through reputation. When pirates raided trade routes, human defense forces responded with overwhelming force. When slavers tried to establish new markets, human strike teams dismantled their operations with surgical precision. And when the Krill Dominion faced invasion from an extragalactic threat, it was humanity that answered their distress call. Admiral Elena Vasquez, now gray-haired and decorated with honors from a dozen species, stood on the bridge of the UEDF Indomitable, leading a fleet of 200 human warships to defend the same empire that had once tried to conquer them. Why are we helping them? A young officer asked. They killed thousands of our people, Vasquez smiled grimly. Because that's what humans do. We don't hold grudges when the universe is at stake. We fight for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The battle was brutal. The extragalactic invaders were unlike anything the galaxy had faced. Biomechanical horrors that didn't negotiate, didn't retreat, didn't seem to feel pain. They simply consumed. But humans had fought monsters before. For 3 days, the combined human Krill fleet held the line. Ships burned. Soldiers died. But they didn't break. On the 3rd day, as the invaders finally retreated into the void, a transmission came from the Krill flagship. It was Zethar, now an old warrior, his exoskeleton cracked and faded but his voice strong. Admiral Vasquez, on behalf of the Krill people, thank you. Vasquez looked at the view screen at the scarred and battered Krill fleet still standing beside her own. We all bleed the same in the void, Commander. Remember that. Epilogue, The Warning In. The centuries that followed, humanity expanded carefully, diplomatically, always mindful of the lessons learned at New Haven. They became explorers, traders, protectors, but never conquerors. And across the galaxy, every species taught their young the same lesson, carved into monuments and whispered in warning. There is a region of space marked by blue planets and yellow stars. The people there are called humans. They are not the strongest, they are not the fastest, they do not have the most advanced technology, but they have something more dangerous than any weapon. They have the absolute conviction that they will survive, no matter the cost. They will turn their cities into fortresses. They will turn their civilians into soldiers. They will turn their last breaths into acts of defiance. And if you threaten them, if you cross into their territory and raise your hand against their homes, they will not stop until you are broken. They will follow you to the ends of the universe. They will make you regret every choice that led you to their doorstep. So heed this warning, passed down from those who learned it in blood. Never cross into human territory, because if you do, you may never return.